Hey everyone, Dan Dog Crypto. We're analyzing the markets. We've had a couple of interesting weeks, certainly with FTX, Sam Bankman Fried, Alameda Research. We've had Genesis, BlockFi. So these potential downward pressure on the markets, certainly putting a dark cloud over cryptocurrency. But as far as cryptocurrency themselves, the use case, nothing has changed. What's happened here is we've tried to take old financing where you create debt and leverage. So, in a volatile as cryptocurrencies are, and certainly the size of the cryptocurrency, the whole global market, it's a very small market. As I say, that certain markets are manipulated and are manipulated. So I believe it would be very easy for large players or large whales to manipulate this market. But the underlying technology with cryptocurrency, blockchain, certainly is something that there will be mass adoption. There will be tokenizations of pretty much everything. So we're going to have insurance policies that will be identified, deeds, registries of deeds, all on the blockchain and working with certain blockchain technology companies. So Bitcoin obviously is the largest. So as we see, it's between support and resistance right now at 17,000. But what's happened is a narrative has been formed, right? So the upside and the downside. So the narrative is, where do we go on the downside? So potentially is 15.8 the downside, where some analysts have predict, well, can it be 12,000? Can it be 10,000? But what's the future? Where do we go as we move forward into the future? Because what happens is, in these uncertain times, so economically, what's been happening as the Federal Reserve and other central banks have been raising interest rate, trying to slow down inflation. Well, inflation certainly has come into effect because of dramatic price increases that large corporations, it becomes a domino effect, that are raising the prices. And now, in an effect to slow this down, you have to slow down the flow of new money entering the system. But really, what happens is the people. So, again, who's affected is the lower middle class. So, you have to create a slowdown. So, the market during these times goes through a recession first. Because what happens is there's a dramatic slowdown. And in the financials, what happens is then money starts being pulled. They try to preserve and secure their income. They transfer, they reallocate into other sectors that, moving forward, is it a value sector where it's less volatile? Do they try to put their money to work in dividend performing? But this has happened now when a bull market occurs. So at the peak of the market, as the market starts dipping down, so you start seeing that you get the euphoria where everyone wants to run in and think, say, they're missing out. That's when you start pulling out. And then naturally, when a bear market enters, that's the time that you investigate. So where does Bitcoin go? So potentially the narrative has been that it could go. Could it go to 9,000? Could it go to 10,000? But what's the upside potential if you follow Bitcoin moving 2 years, 3 years into the future? We know there's a halving that comes in to effect in 2024. Well, now we have Ethereum. So when we look at Ethereum, which is proof of stake, so everything went successfully, and as they start meeting their roadmap, but what happens with Ethereum? It becomes deflationary. So now smart contracts, it's the leader built on Ethereum. So where does it head? So you're going to have this support and resistance. What downward pressure is there? Who's selling? Could there be something else that occurs that puts more pressure? So right now we have the Feds, and if do we have a 50 basis point? How many of these 50 basis points occur going into next year? So now, in theory, you would look at it and say, okay, this is looking positive for the market moving forward, because it would be a forward indicator. But as money starts to be pulled out of the economy, so large corporations, they have to cut back. So then naturally the unemployment, that's the trigger, the unemployment, the housing. So there will be effects that will start to occur. But those are lagging indicators, right? So it takes time for this to filter through into the market. So what will happen is when we register, are we in a recession? Are we in a global recession? As we can see, Europe, in certain parts of Europe, because of energy prices, certainly it's triggering, yes, we're in a recession. But what happens now at that point is there a shift? And traditionally, the shift ends up being now, well, unemployment, the trigger, because people have stopped spending, so the pain is all felt for the people. And then natural assets come down, dramatic pricing adjustments, credit becomes very expensive, people find themselves in difficult positions. Do they default? So what happens at that point? Well, the pain starts to be felt, but that's a lagging indicator. But then moving forward now, once the pain is felt and we identify, as they were saying, it's transitory, inflation is transitory, they don't see any problem. Well, it took how long before they finally admitted that, yes, this inflation is really real and it is here to stay. So at this point, not admitting, trying to change the terms of how we indicate 2 quarters of a recession. So these all play effects in all markets, but you scout, you start looking, you analyze, so you go through it. Will Bitcoin be here? What's its price point? So you look at the maximalists, they're saying, hey, Bitcoin in this bull run should have been at 100,000. 5 years from now, is it going to be 1 million? So what is the potential? Does it become a true store of value? You look at Ethereum. What is the building on Ethereum? What is happening? So you analyze, is XRP, is it going to be a cross-border? Is it for intermittence? Then you have Doge, and then you have Twitter, Elon Musk, putting payment systems on Twitter. So naturally, there's going to be mass adoption. And as money flows, as money start entering, so there should be a move. So between a bear and a bull market, in a bear market, naturally what happens is you've been hit, and anyone that is in, what is your time horizon? So you start analyzing and you're looking and you try to find projects that potentially will be here. Could Shiba be one? Could Solana be another? Avalanche? And then of course we have hacks. What will happen with hacks moving forward as Pulsechain launches? So you start investigating what is the possibilities. Chainlink, you need an oracle, you need data, you need to move information from the real world, the digital world. This, You need large institutions, so this oracle is needed. So you analyze where is it best for me to put my money to work for me. So you start investigating opportunities. Cosmos, taking all different blockchains. You have privacy coins, you have Monero. So then you have exchanges, Chronos, which is CRO, and all the FUD that has happened with the FTX. So people pulling their coins, but proof of funds, will they survive? Do they stake their Chronos? Do they support the ecosystem? So the ecosystem is still strong. So nothing has happened with digital currency because it's the now and it is the future. So you start analyzing all these effects that are occurring. So we have an old system, which is the money system. As I've been stating, we have CBDCs that potentially come aboard. But you had the IMF, you had World Economic Forum, you have all these unions that are working with government officials and large entities to retransform the landscape and the future. Is it clean energy? How we deal with this clean energy? So the risk factor here becomes definitely where the global currency is the US dollar. And then something else that no one really knows much about, and which is the Club of Rome, which again is another large entity trying to create this global equity and health for the planet. Again, clean energy. They discuss and meet on a regular basis with leaders, and they have all the agendas that coincide with the World Economic Forum, the UN, the World Bank, Bank of Intermittence. They want to transform something. So you want a retransformation of energy, which is clean energy, where it has an effect and a cost effect as well. But as they state here, they want to rethink and reimagine financing. So their ultimate goal is trying to create an economy. How do we analyze economies and creating a new financial system that supports humanity and the planet, which is very interesting. But within this whole financial system is creating something that creates equality across the board, a value system that benefits and accelerates and moves toward a real economy, a wealth creation for the many. So reimagining, they're rethinking this whole financial system where you have the elite and global 1%. Well, here you also have an elite and global 1%, but they're trying to do one thing: redistribute and trying to remove a power authority, which at this point I believe is the United States, because the United States, the global currency, is backed by petroleum. So supporting clean energy, certainly moving forward, we'd say it's a good idea, but there could be some traumatic effects. But the key thing here is reimagining and rethinking about how finance could be equal and fair, that it doesn't distribute just to the 1 and 2% of the world. And that's where you can create a new economy. And that's where Pzen, where the people can create. This is the global elite that say, hey, we want to retransform and create something that creates equality for all. But no, it really, they want to benefit themselves and trying to take, again, it will always be from the people. So you have two sides of power that are actually disputing how the global economy should interact and work. Where one says, hey, no, you need a strong superpower that controls, and yet what we've had is the US dollar being the global currency, but yet you want to redistribute, you want to reimagine also GDP. So now, who hurts the most? So within certain economies and certain countries will be affected dramatically. So when you create an economic economy of a redistribution, and if people understand the benefits where real people, common people can come together, interact, this is the pay it forward wealth redistribution system, which is Pzen. And because you secure and you hold your Pzen token in a decentralized wallet, such as a MetaMask, because you hold it, a 2% redistribution goes to all the holders. So this is something that you're creating an economic economy, creating an income producing asset that your decentralized wallet holds. And because you're an owner, a percentage owner, a cooperative owner, shared ownership in the Pzen system, as long as you're holding your ownership of Pzen, a distribution occurs. So there can only be a transaction transfer because the EVM is monetizing and keeping data. So it's in the blockchain. So it's a transfer of ownership. So as you hold Pzen, any interaction, any transaction transfer that occurs, the holders receive a redistribution. They may sell at any time because it's a buy, a sell, or a transfer. A redistribution occurs, minus the burn, minus the charity. So now you get this redistribution. But the one thing with Pzen is your percentage size based on a transaction transfer. You have a frequency and a time. So the individuals own a percentage of Pzen, the economic economy transaction transfer redistribution network. And as you hold and you receive a redistribution, your percentage ownership increases with each redistribution. So a compounding yield occurs. So the frequency in this compounding yield dramatically increases. That is key, because now every time an interaction occurs, your present value and future value, right? Because you receive more Pzen, your future value will also go up on the next interaction, which represents your yield. But this is building an economic economy, as I stated with the Club of Rome and all these global elites wanting to reimagine, redistribute. This is a peer-to-peer. You're removing the middleman. So what happens is there's no central party. So as a common or a holder in a digital economy, a transaction transfer redistribution Pzen, the economy, digital economy, which represents your ownership, what happens is because you've eliminated and the code is determining that this distribution occurs, because the code becomes law and it's immutable. So now it will always do what it says. So now a common or an individual, you actually have ownership of the redistribution network where any redistribution goes to the holders. So it all depends how you look at it. So what happens is, why hold it? By holding it, any interaction, naturally you're going to get a compounding yield, which increases dramatically. So as Pzen, the economy and people understand why Pzen, what is Pzen? Pzen is a transaction transfer economic economy the code identifies that has the ability to produce work, because once you interact with your decentralized wallet and hold Pzen, the contract will always deliver what it said based on what is occurring. So that transaction, transfer, the size, which is that volume. Now what happens here, the frequency, the time, the compounding effect of this accelerates time just by being early. See, because we're day 94 into the journey. It's very early. As volume starts to increase, as people feel more comfortable and understanding why Pzen, it's an economy, a digital economy that you can share, that you can send peer-to-peer. You're removing any central part, any middleman, and this economy can grow because there's only 2,300 holders. So I believe Pzen ends up being an early opportunity. The other function, so typically what happens in an economy, you need inflation to grow. So the Federal Reserve tries to stabilize the economy, keeping it at a 2% target rate. So how they accelerate is create debt by creating money. So this creates more flow, and this money goes into the economy. So if you accelerated that money printing, you're going to create inflation. So inflation then creates assets to appreciate, commodities, all these things to appreciate because of the devaluation of the currency. So then they try to stabilize it. In this case, they've done a terrible job because it shot up beyond getting to, could be 10%, depends how you analyze it. Well, in Pzen, it's deflationary. So from the original amount, having 880 million Pzen tokens, the supply is diminishing. So it's continually reducing. So it's also increasing your ownership by just the burn. So it doesn't need inflation, it's deflation. But in the real world economy, deflation hurts, as we're seeing it now, because deflation takes away from the value. But in this economy, when you burn, you make it more valuable benefiting all the participants that hold, supporting the Pzen transaction transfer economic economy with the distribution. And then the added benefit is there's a charity that really hasn't been discussed much, but the charity will grow over time. So Pzen is an economic economy where we have a transaction transfer redistribution, which creates equity and equitable for all the holders being early. And as the use case and people understand, by holding Pzen and any interaction at any point, you may take a distribution, and then the redistribution occurs, and anyone who's left holding, their percentage also increases because they received again another redistribution. So the yield is going up, the percentage of ownership goes up, where in other protocols it goes down depending on how many participants are staking and how long they stake. You may receive more, but over time it goes down. Well, with Pzen it goes up. So I believe Pzen certainly is an opportunity. Do your research, look into it, investigate, and you say, can Pzen grow? Can this network expand? Well, we understand that they're trying to create something different in this economy that we live on, the SWIFT system, how the MasterCard and Visa, PayPal, because this peer-to-peer certainly is a better system. And you can directly send money rather than having intermediaries. But what's happened is, first they're creating all the onboards. They don't want to lose control. They want to keep control, because it just makes natural sense that if you're generating large profits or you're spending expenditures on fees for interactions, that these Fortune 500 companies naturally would want to create a peer-to-peer. So that's why I say they need those legislatures to come in, and they want to use stable coins at this point. But you can have a peer-to-peer transaction where you can send it with a decentralized wallet. There's its use case. You can send any ERC20 token. And there's other exchanges that are decentralized that are doing some interesting things, but that's a topic for another time. But Pzen certainly is an early opportunity. Metcalfe's law, creating a network effect, the people, the many. That's how Bitcoin started. The people interacting with one another. But now it's like we need permission, not being we need to conform, follow rules, follow laws. No, it's as long as we comply and legally do our obligations if there's a taxable event. But you should be able to send freely, interact freely, where the people can have a percentage ownership of a network. But because we're conforming and we're brainwashed to believe what we hear, it's not always what we hear, because that's influencing our thought process. You have to break away and imagine. That's why they say reimagine, taking you in a different direction. But that's a controlled direction, where this is an independent, where you choose to interact. Thank you. Wish you the best.